What are your personal highlights from the World Congress of Gastrointestinal Cancer?
Okay, so starting maybe from colorectal cancer, I'd say the analysis from the Tribe study, which identifies an RNA signature which seems to be predictive of better immunotherapy response in microsatellite stable CRC, which is basically our unmet need. So it's a step forward in the right direction. And as for biliary tract cancers, very interesting, the data from the TOPAZ-1 trial, which could pave the way to a new standard, the addition of durvalumab to cisplatin gemcitabine with an OS benefit, which is significant and clinically relevant. Now the issue is determining whether it should be for all comers or if we should identify a subgroup which would more likely benefit from the addition of immunotherapy, and I think this is more likely. In gastroesophageal cancer, the longest trial answers a question which we've been asking ourselves for some time now, and so the addition of an anti-angiogenic to trifluridine in pretreated gastroesophageal carcinoma does not appear to provide a benefit. And in pancreatic, I think it's particularly interesting, the study by Benamar and colleagues showing that in the subpopulation of KRAS wild-type cancers, there is a higher abundance of possibly targetable alterations and also a better prognosis, which kind of it puts into perspective the necessity of NGS testing, looking for mutation possible alterations we can target, which is getting more and more important. So I think we are at the point where we need to shift our focus from which patient should be tested to which patients should not be tested with an NGS.
Yeah. In the later lines of treatment of these entities, which are your key take-home messages?
Okay, again, starting from colorectal, I see the data from Martinelli and colleagues on third-line re-challenge with cetuximab, so an anti-IGFR, or with immunotherapy with avelumab, are very interesting. The possibility of alternating between an anti-IGFR and an anti-VEGF, it's conceptually very interesting. In biliary, well, the FIGHT-002 data with bengatinib, obviously it's a new option for treatment. Again, as in pancreatic, the issue is always knowing about the target, so looking for it in the first place. And in gastroesophageal, beside the longest data, there's also the data from the Destiny Gastric 03. I think it's interesting that it shows this overlap between the expression of HER2 overexpression and PD-L1 expression, which could be a good grounds for future trials to build on. And again, in pancreatic, I think the focus is still on, we're getting to have a few more drugs for a few more targets, and I think testing is the way to go at the moment, and identifying which drug for which patient, both in the early lines and even more so in late lines.
Where is the place for trifluridine, tipiracil, and Naliri?
Okay, well, in pancreatic cancer, I'd say this the answer is pretty easy. It's basically Naliri is basically the second-line standard. Now, of course, that can depend on how the patient was treated in the first few lines, but generally speaking, in our clinical practice, data from the Napoli trial, they're pretty clear, they're a good ground, and we work based on that. So the combination of Naliri and 5-fluorouracil is our second-line standard. As for trifluridine basically, well, in gastroesophageal, it has its place in usually in the third line with an OS benefit. So we had the question which has been answered on whether we should have added an anti-angiogenic to it or not, and now the answer seems to be no, but still the drug itself has activity and with an OS benefit, so we use it regularly. And in colorectal cancer, in advanced lines as well, again, the defining the line in colorectal is a bit, it's a bit more blurry because you have a continuum of care. You have usually alternating regimens with sort of platinum irinotecan and anti-angiogenics and or anti-AGFRs with treatment pauses and with it's a bit more tailored, but still after the first line and second line options have been exhausted, trifluidine tirpicin is absolutely an option, and with possibly with the addition of an anti-angiogenic, or alone for patients who cannot tolerate an anti-angiogenic or are not eligible for it.
Last question. Let's look into the future. ESMO is coming in September. Are you expecting some new interesting data?
I think we're all pretty excited about developments in immunotherapy in colorectal cancer and in general in gastrointestinal cancers, because there were a lot of presentations concerning various attempts, various strategies to try and find a way to make this key work in this lock. And we're always hoping that the next Congress, the next ESMO, will be the occasion where some new data on that matter can become available. I think this is going to be a long road, honestly. But small incremental advances, we build one brick upon the other, hopefully.